Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. The Lamar Jackson show, the thriller, if you will, has brought all sorts of writers around and stories around, and I guess this is what happens when Michael Jackson comes to town. I'm headed out to Hollywood to follow all things Ravens and Rams on Monday night. Luke's out on the backfields in Owings Mills, and people are coming in and out and writing things. And when I see senior writer from ESPN, Ian O'Connor, in town, I know there must be a story. We've had him on many times talking about Bill Belichick and his book on that and football writings. And we're at the beginning of, hey, Ian, somebody's going to write a book on Lamar Jackson before it's all over with if he continues this. But I liked your first little novella or mini-series on Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh needing each other out at ESPN. Appreciate that you spent a little time, and certainly it was great to see you in town. The Ravens have created a story for guys like you who write them, correct?
Oh, no question about it, Nestor, and thanks for the kind words. I think the Ravens right now might be the best team in the league. I think they are right now anyway, and so Lamar Jackson's book, if it's to be written, might be written early after this season if he wins a Super Bowl, which is very possible. And I think it's a great story. I think that John Harbaugh was absolutely the right coach for him. And certainly Jackson, even though he represented a radical difference from Joe Flacco, ended up being the perfect quarterback for that organization. And so let's see how it plays out. But it looked to me, in watching them play recently, they're a team now that is almost a team without a weakness. The defense playing better, and obviously the playmakers they have now on offense. And I think they're going to be really, really tough to beat in the postseason. One thing they bring into the tournament over the years, and you know this better than anyone, Nestor, is confidence against the Patriots. And that's something that the rest of the AFC does not have. And I think that's a pretty important thing to bring into the postseason.
Well, and certainly once you've got that pelt on your wall and you beat the Patriots and beat them good, and you beat the Seahawks and beat them good, you got on a plane and went out and did that. Now we're going to do Monday night out in Hollywood. We're going to see how we hold up to all of that. But there's a part of guys like you coming around and asking questions, and John hates the 50,000-foot question in the middle of the season. You go get him in March, he might have a coffee and put his feet up on your desk and tell you a story, much like Belichick, I guess. But there is no time or oxygen for anything other than the Rams, right? And part of that is John sort of waves guys like you and even me when I want to ask deeper questions in the season to say let it all play out, let it breathe a little bit, because nobody was around here 6 weeks ago declaring Lamar Jackson Michael Jordan. I mean, literally, when they're getting beaten by the Cleveland Browns and trying to figure it out, certainly defensively, they didn't look like a full team, didn't look like they had a pass rush. The organization itself is remarkable, and I know you go to the head of that when you write books on Belichick, and certainly, when I wrote my chapter on John Harbaugh after the last championship, his brother, all that goes into it, the underdog thing, Lamar being told by 31 other teams, hey, kid, you're a wide receiver. I mean, even this week, they had to refute Marty Morningwig saying that he was a wide receiver. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a nice press release and all, and Kevin and John and Marty. But didn't everybody think he was a wide receiver 18 months? I mean, didn't the majority of people say, we're not going to turn our whole franchise and build it into a college offense so that our quarterback can run into linebackers 12 or 15 times a game? Because that's not going to work. And there's still plenty of people who sit back privately and say, it'll work while it works.
That's right. I don't think 31 other teams felt that way, Nestor. I think, he said himself, Lamar Jackson did, that a Chargers scout wanted him to work out at wide receiver and asked if he would, and he was really offended by that, stunned by it. There were suggestions by people in the media, of course, Bill Polian and others, that he might have to switch to wide receiver. He's been dealing with that going back to high school, and some major college recruiters who wanted him to switch. So it really is an amazing journey. And you look at the top 10 of the draft, his draft, 4 quarterbacks were taken in the top 10. He is outplaying them by a mile right now, and he needed a franchise to trade back into the first round, the final pick of that round, just to be a first rounder. So he's endured a lot, but I think it fuels his fire in a lot of ways. It's a little reminiscent of Tom Brady going 199th in his draft in 2000 and just using that as fuel to become arguably the greatest player of all time, never mind the greatest quarterback. And I think Lamar Jackson right now is clearly the front runner for MVP. I guess Russell Wilson is right behind him, but if this continues, and I do think when I talked about confidence against the Patriots in the playoffs, I wasn't just talking about beating them this season. You go back years, really to the start of the Harbaugh run in Baltimore, beating the Patriots twice in the playoffs in Foxborough, almost beating them 2 other times in the playoffs in Foxborough, beating them this year in the regular season, having some tough losses against them. That's the one franchise that could go into the Patriots building in January in the AFC title game and win. Now, you know the Ravens want to get that number 1 seed if possible. You look at their schedule now, at Los Angeles, San Francisco, at Buffalo. That's not an easy stretch, so it's going to be tough to get that number 1 seed, but I do think the way Jackson's playing, the way the defense is playing now, and with Harbaugh having won a ring, he knows how to do it. I think that the Ravens are the one team in the AFC as a 2 seed that could pull that off.
Ian O'Connor wrote this week about John Harbaugh and Ingrid Harbaugh, who's John would admit I like her more, and and I know she chatted with you as well. The notion that the organization would be in, right, and that Eric DeCosta would be in on this, and that not only that they would trade back into the first round, sort of deftly, not giving up too much, right? They didn't go all in by dealing into the top 10, right, and give away 2 or 3 drafts. That if it didn't work out, there was another plan. There would always be another plan for them, a backup plan. But this notion that Pat Ricard, Nick Boyle, a couple of big tight ends, drafting this kid that can fly, that can take the top off the defense, all of this being done around Lamar Jackson, organizationally, that's not safe to do as a football executive, where many of these guys get one and done and they never get a chance to get back into it, that you would always go with the 6'5" guy that can throw the ball 80 yards, that reads defenses, that's pedigreed up to fit the suit, so to speak. And the Ravens never really saw it that way. And from an analytical standpoint, and books will be written about this if it actually works, they really bucked the trend. But more than that, the safety of the organization that George Koukainis, Joe Ortiz, Eric DeCosta, these guys have been together for 2 decades, literally doing this, that all of them managed to buy themselves into this. And knowing that if Lamar didn't work out, or if something, God forbid, happens to Lamar, they're going to keep their jobs. There's at least 20 other organizations in the league where this is too risky to risk the only chance you'd have to build an organization.
It's a great point, and I think Ozzie Newsome, how about him with a walk-off homer to end his career in the first round, taking Lamar Jackson with that final pick. That is a great little stamp at the end of your legacy as an executive to have. And you're right in that they basically had to revamp the franchise to build it around this quarterback, and to tell Greg Roman, by the way, you're now the new offensive coordinator, and revamp the entire playbook to the extent where players are saying it's the biggest playbook they've ever seen, and John saying there's not a play that's not in it in the NFL.
Well, Greg Roman got a chance to do things here, drive a car that he never thought he could design, right? Like a Wonkavator, right? Like, because he dreams up doing this, then you need to have the players to execute it, right? And it's a pretty special skill set. It's a special version of chess, right? Literally.
Well, and ESPN Stats and Information came up with the stats that I used in my piece on ESPN.com, that the Ravens are using the pistol offense 46% of the time in their offensive plays. The rest of the league is using it 1% of the time. So the pistol is a modified shotgun where the quarterback is standing a little bit closer to the center than he would be in the shotgun, so you can put a running back behind him and then run those read option plays. And Lamar Jackson is great at it, reading the defense, deciding what to do with the football, and it's been really special to watch. And even seeing him on the same field with Deshaun Watson, who's a great quarterback and a great athlete, but he's not nearly the athlete that Lamar Jackson is, and to see them together, you get a sense of that there really is no quarterback, and Belichick said this too about trying to simulate Jackson in practice. There's no other quarterback around the league that replicates his skills. And I think we saw that in the Houston game.
It's fascinating. Ian O'Connor's here. He has written books on Bill Belichick, amongst many others. You can follow him out on ESPN. He's written an incredible piece on Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh and their relationship, and one of many reporters nationally coming around, chasing around Lamar, telling stories, writing stories. For the organization at this point to be 8-2 and hungry, let's go through this. 52 weeks ago, Harbaugh was going to get fired and go coach the Packers or the Dolphins, right? Flacco was on his way out. Nobody knew it was going to happen. Now they have this organization that still has the best kicker. They have a Hall of Fame right guard. They have a Hall of Fame safety that they've imported in who's got a bad attitude. They've got a journeyman now cornerback who's playing at the top of his game, and a ball hawk and Marcus Peters playing for a whole lot of money. Matt Judon playing for a whole lot of money at this point, right? You got 3 Heisman Trophy winners that they can put on the field on Monday night out in Hollywood, in Ingram, RG3, and Jackson. You don't know who's got the ball. You can put Hollywood Brown out. It's an amazing cast to sort of write this book and put it all together. And Marcus Peters going back to L.A. is a hell of a story, because this is a story about pro personnel and a defense that couldn't get to the quarterback, couldn't do much. And Eric DeCosta went out. L.J. Ford signed him. We had Josh Bynes out the other day, who's got a ring here from 7 years ago. He said he walked into the office and knew everybody, because everybody's the same as it was 7 years ago. And there's a level of comfort where you can walk into a building on Tuesday and then go pick off the first pass of the game in Pittsburgh on Sunday, which he did, and they haven't lost since. The Peters thing, so deft. There were never trades in the NFL, Ian, in the middle of the season, and now the Ravens have wound up getting that big trading deadline relief pitcher that was unavailable in the past, and they're going to go beat the Rams with him on Monday night. It's crazy.
Yeah, it speaks to a great organization. That's what it does. And what's interesting is, and we both talked about it, where there was a point last year where they're 4-5. Flacco's hurt. They've lost 3 in a row. Harbaugh believes he might get fired. Here's a guy who had 1 losing season in his first 10 years in the league, and he's thinking about getting fired because the standards there are very high. Now, granted, it would have been, 4 straight years without a playoff appearance, and that's tough to, but it wasn't like a complete disaster there. And certainly the Ravens were always hovering around 500. And so Jackson gets them out of that and gives Harbaugh new life. But it's the rest of the team, the organization built around him, that's very impressive right now, and would surprise nobody if it could put together another Super Bowl run. So I think you're right. It's about the executives and scouts making those decisions, the coaches, and obviously Harbaugh's decision to elevate Roman and basically tell him to, or charge him to, overhaul the entire playbook to fit this quarterback, right now looks like the best decision made in the league this year.
You write a lot about leadership. You've written a lot about Belichick. Leadership's how you win. And the headline, why Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh needed each other and football needed them together. There is something about even seeing the picture here. I saw Jameson retweeted it of Harbaugh's hand on Lamar's chest, and I see them smiling, and it's easy to smile when you're 8-2. But there is a part of this that the Cleveland Browns drafted Lamar Jackson, or the Jacksonville Jaguars drafted Lamar Jackson, or the Miami Dolphins drafted Lamar Jackson, and he got to play at home down there near Pond. I don't know that it would have worked out like this, right? I mean, or if, let's say, the Ravens would have drafted Baker Mayfield or Josh Rosen or any of it doesn't, it really is schemes and people and systems and personalities, right, that mesh and work.
I've always liked John's personality. And I don't know Jim Harbaugh, but from a distance, better than Jim's. And I think his personality was a perfect fit for Jackson's because, Lamar Jackson, and you've seen it, he's infectious. The energy he has bouncing around the facility in the locker room and the way he is with teammates and picking up the photographer that he pancaked on the sideline, the woman then sending her a social media message checking on her condition, and I just watched the end of the first quarter in the Houston game where Boyle drops that wide-open pass in the flat, and it was the end of the quarter, and he was walking down the other end of the field, and I watched Lamar Jackson trail him for about 30 yards, catch up to him, and tap him on the helmet. Hey, it's okay. And little things like that, even letting Mark Ingram go to the podium first. I don't remember a franchise player or quarterback sitting in an interview room and telling another teammate to go first and sitting there and waiting his turn. And little things like that are big things. And that's why his teammates have always loved him, talking to his former coaches in high school, in college. he was a real leader, and they gravitated towards him. And you could see that just being there for a little bit with the Ravens, and so yeah. But I think, John, that exchange that basically went viral during the Cincinnati game on the bench when they expressed love for each other, and John telling Lamar how much he loved his attacking style and how little kids are going to be wearing his jersey number 8 for the next 20 years, and John was. He did not want that necessarily to get out there. He didn't know it was going
I was shocked, right? Like, when I saw that, I'm like, that's a tender moment. That's nice. But John's a general. He doesn't want. I would be shocked because it was so PR-y and so hallmarky and so warm and fuzzy that John may have said, "Don't." I can see John bristling in the season.
He didn't want that out there.
Yeah.
He said Kevin Byrne, the PR chief, would not have wanted that out there. So somebody in the social media department or somebody made an executive decision and just tweeted it and posted it. But I actually thought it was a positive because a lot of the country maybe isn't as familiar with John Harbaugh as they are with Jim, and it was a chance for him to show his humanity and also to see the relationship, the great one that exists between this quarterback and the head coach. Most head coaches, as you know, in the NFL, don't show humanity in the middle of a game, blowout or not. And I thought it was a good moment. I thought it was a good decision to get that out there.
Well, Tony Dungy always did, right?
He did, but we're talking about the rare exception.
Well, that's why I admire Tony Dungy so much, yeah. I guess. We're all trying to be like him. We just can't because we curse.
Pete Carroll's another guy who will do that. But, the vast majority of head coaches in the NFL do not show that side of their personalities in the middle of a game.
Ian O'Connor is here from ESPN. Go read his work. Ian, I'm a jaded old fart, 25 Super Bowls in, even at 50, but I've never been to the L.A. Memorial Coliseum. So, around every turn, you always feel like you want to see something you've never seen or do something you've never done. Monday Night Football at the L.A. Memorial I'm going to feel some shades of Dandy, Don, and Howard when I'm out there. How about that?
I like that a lot because, believe it or not, I've never been there either. But and it's funny, I'm 55 years old. And
what's left for you? Come on, man. You've been around. Come on, I've been watching you for 25. What's left for you? Like, I've never been to Wimbledon, but I don't want to go any. It's like sort of jumped the shark. But like, what's left? What do you got to do in your sports world?
That's one, Wimbledon, and I had a conversation once with Pete Sampras, who loves golf, and I said to him, and I've done 20 Masters, and I said, you have to go to Augusta National. He had never been, and he said to me, well, you have to go to Wimbledon. Oh. He was right, and I will get there at some point. So that's one. Kentucky Derby I've never done.
That's my favorite, by the way.
I'm not a big horse guy, but so if I had to pick one over the other, I would pick Wimbledon over the Kentucky Derby.
See, I've never been to the Indy 500 because I don't like loud. I've been to NASCAR. Like we all, I've been to bullfights in Madrid. I would never do that again. But like I'm kind of chasing the Northern Lights at this point, You know what I'm really chasing? I'm chasing the first NFL game in Honolulu that matters between the Ravens and somebody. How about that? That's what I want. And a bye week after.
Have you done an Olympics? I'm assuming you have.
I have never been to an Olympic event. No, I had a chance to go to Atlanta, and that's when the bombing happened. So I sort of felt serendipity that I didn't go because who knows where I would have been. But that was the one. And I've been to the World Cup. I've been to Germany for World Cup. So that's coming here in a couple of years. I don't know. I'm sort of done with my sports bucket list in some sort of weird way.
What about the Masters?
I've never been to the Masters. I've turned it down twice. Do
that one.
Everybody tells me that.
Yeah, just even if you don't love golf or you don't even like golf, it's an event. It really is a terrific event. In fact, if I had to give back every credential except one, the one I would keep would be Augusta National. And I've been critical of their policies over the years, the way they run that club. But the tournament itself, the beauty of that place, being a Northeasterner after a tough winter, it's tough to beat that. Yeah,
my cousins live in Augusta, so I've had sort of a standing invite all my life. I'll get there. I'll get there. I mean, there's time left. Hey, man, I'm getting the L.A. Memorial Coliseum on Monday night. I can't do any better than that. Ian O'Connor here from ESPN. Please go read his work, John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. Great seeing you, and I guess the good news is if he keeps playing like Michael Jordan, we'll be seeing a lot of you, and there'll be many, many tales to tell. Maybe he'll play till he's 40. too.
I look forward to it, buddy. Thanks.
You got it. Ian O'Connor. Go follow him out on Twitter and at ESPN. Nasty at WNST.net. Monday Night Football. Booger McFarland and me together on the sidelines. We'll be out in L.A. Luke is out in Owings Mills. We're wherever you are in the BuyAToyota.com audio vault, as well as Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram and anywhere you get your purple coverage. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore positive.